Hello, thrill seekers. Here's the big announcement. I'm getting married on June 26th. Yay! And because of that, I am going to go to Vegas to see my nephew tomorrow. Tomorrow being Tuesday, but maybe today's Tuesday when you're watching this, or maybe you're watching this 10 years in the future. And anyway, what I thought I would do is make a couple of videos before I go so that I have them to upload in case I can't make any videos in Vegas. But if I make any videos in Vegas, I'll let you know that they're in Vegas, and it won't be this backdrop that you're seeing, which is in Los Angeles. So today what I thought I would do is introduce you to something from, well, not really from Dogen's Shobogenzo. It appears as an appendix in Volume 1 of Shobogenzo as translated by Nishijima and Cross, but I think most Shobogenzos don't include this, and they should, but I see why they don't. Officially, it's not part of Shobogenzo. Dogen did not write it as part of Shobogenzo. And it is called Fukan Zazengi. And it is one of the first pieces of writing of Dogen's that we know about. I don't know if it's the first one, but it was written very early in his career. It's not dated here, but I think it's 1227. Okay, it's mostly dated to the year 1227, which it's always easy to figure out how old Dogen was when he wrote something because he was born in the year 1200. So if it's 1227, he was 27 years old. He was a little kid. He's younger than my nephew is now. My nephew's 30. So this is something Dogen wrote when he was, 27. But it's very profound and very deep because he was a pretty deep guy even when he was a little snotty little kid. And if you want to read more about Fukan Zazengi, there's a great book called Dogen's Manuals of Zen Meditation by Carl Bielefeld, which is pretty much entirely about Fukan Zazengi. In fact, that's what the little characters next to it say. They say Fukan Zazengi. This book goes into great detail about, there are two known versions of Fukan Zazengi that are mostly the same but have some interesting differences. The one I'm going to read you is what's called the popular version, and it is generally considered to be the standard version. It's the one people mostly use. The other version is an earlier draft which contains a bit more wordage, but doesn't say that much that's different. Also, Bielefeld traces the places in which Dogen basically copied an older, I'm not sure, I don't remember who wrote it, but it's an older Chinese manual for doing Zazen that Dogen used as his blueprint for this piece, but he substantially changed it, so it's quite different. Well, it's quite different in certain aspects from the original Chinese. But I'm going to read you the Nishijima Cross version of Fukan Zazengi and then comment on it as I go along. Oh, the other place where you can read about this, if you're really desperate, is in my book Don't Be a Jerk. In Don't Be a Jerk, I made a paraphrase of Fukan Zazengi and used that as the first chapter because I figured it kind of set the stage for the rest of what I wanted to do in Don't Be a Jerk. Okay, so here goes, Fukan Zazengi, and then I'll stop and comment about it as we go along, and I think it's kind of interesting. It's very sort of seminal. I always hate that word because it's kind of gross. Dogen stuff about doing Zazen. Here we go. Universal Guide to the Standard Method of Zazen. That's how Nishijima Roshi translates the title Fukan Zazengi. Now when we research it, the truth originally is all around. Why should we rely on practice and experience? Practice and experience is, somebody sent me an email the other day, this came up as a contention because some amateur sort of linguist was trying to say, oh, it's not really... Anyway, practice and experience is usually often translated as practice and enlightenment, but experience is actually a more direct translation of the word, but it's this idea that you practice in order to achieve enlightenment, in order to achieve an experience. Now, Dogen is not a fan of that idea, so let's go on. The real vehicle exists naturally. Why should we put forth great effort? This is his great question that Dogen had when he was a youngster. He was told that we're perfect and we're enlightened just as we are, so why do we have to do anything? Why do we have to meditate, for example? Why do we have to do Zazen? Furthermore, the whole body far transcends dust and dirt. Who could believe in the means of sweeping and polishing? That's a reference to something that I mentioned earlier from the Platform Sutra, which is the idea of the polishing the mirror. as a way, as metaphor for what we do when we do practice. In general, we do not stray from the right state. Of what use, then, are the tiptoes of training? And that's, I'll just give you a little aside there, that line gets translated differently in every version of Fukan Zazengi, and when I went back to look at the Japanese, I saw why. There's this thing about tiptoes, and nobody knows what it means or what Dogen was alluding to, and I think to this day, even the scholars can't agree, so we're just gonna go, he just said something, whatever he said. However, if there is a 1,000th or 100th of a gap, the separation is as great as that between heaven and earth. And this is from a poem called Shinjin Mei, Faith Mind Inscription, and it's an allusion to that. Basically that's what it says. If there's a gap, then it's like the distance between heaven and earth. If there's any sort of, he's going to tell us what he means by that. If a trace of disagreement arises, we lose the mind in confusion. So even a little bit of confusion just makes us lost. Now this is the line I like, or the section I like. Proud of our understanding and richly endowed with realization, we obtain special states of insight. We attain the truth. We clarify the mind. We acquire the zeal that pierces the sky. We ramble through remote intellectual spheres, going in with the head. And yet, we have almost completely lost the vigorous road of getting the body out, as has Ziggy. He's barking over there. But what I like about that is it sort of describes a lot of people's idealized idea of what enlightenment is going to be. Piercing the zeal that pierces the sky and special states and all that. And then he goes, yeah, but we lost the vigorous method of getting the body out. And that is his reference to Zazen, which is a physical practice as much as it is a mental practice, or more maybe. So let's go on. Moreover, we can still see the traces of the 6 years spent sitting upright by the natural sage of Jetavana Park, that is Buddha, who sat for 6 years. We can still hear rumors of the 9 years spent facing the wall by the transmitter of the mind seal of Shaolin Temple, that is Bodhidharma, who supposedly sat in a cave, which later became the basis for the Shaolin Temple, and faced a wall for 9 years, basically doing Zazen. He didn't do it all 9 years. I'm sure he got up to poop and stuff like that, but he devoted himself for 9 years to just sitting without teaching anything. The ancient saints were like this already. How could people of today fail to make effort? Which is to say that these people, the Bodhidharma and Buddha, and etc., the people that we admire in this tradition, did a practice. They did Zazen practice. So how can we say we don't have to do Zazen practice? Therefore, we should cease the intellectual work of studying sayings and chasing words. We should learn the backward step of turning light and reflecting, turning the light around and reflecting, turning it inwards, looking inwards. Body and mind will naturally fall away. Body and mind falling away is Dogen's great revelation. Hello, helicopter. Boy, that one's going really low. I mean, it looked like it was like 20 feet over the house. That's crazy. So Dogen's great enlightenment or awakening experience came when he heard his teacher say the word Shinjin Datsuraku, a drop-off body and mind. And the original features will manifest themselves before us. So original features is also translated often as original face, and that's another line from a koan which says, show me your original face that you had before your parents were born. If we want to attain the matter of the ineffable, that's inmo. Ineffable is inmo, and I've talked about this before. Inmo means something or what, or sometimes the ineffable or suchness. We should practice the matter of the ineffable at once. So if we want to understand the ineffable, we do the ineffable. In general, a quiet room is good for practicing Zazen, and food and drink are taken in moderation. This is where he gets into the meat of how to do Zazen. Cast aside all involvements, give the myriad things a rest, do not think of good and bad, do not consider right and wrong, stop the driving movement of mind, will, consciousness, cease intellectual consideration through images, thoughts, and reflections. Do not aim to become a Buddha. How could this be connected with sitting or lying down? And Nishijima Roshi's footnote to that says, sitting and lying down represent the 4 kinds of behavior: sitting, standing, walking, and lying down. Master Dogen suggested that Zazen is transcendent over the ordinary actions of daily life. And here he's kind of telling you about all he's going to tell you. He'll tell you one more thing about what to do mentally during Zazen. So he's not saying your mind has to be absolutely free of thought or any sort of movement or anything going on, but he's saying let them drop away. As the thoughts come up, let them drop. Now he gets into how to practice Zazen, and it's very direct and very easy. I mean, very easy to understand. This is like as Dogen, as direct as he's ever going to get. We usually spread a thick mat on the place where we sit and use a round cushion on top of that. Either sit in the full lotus posture or sit in the half lotus posture. Nishijima Roshi always like to say that he just gave those as examples. There are other postures you can sit in. To sit in the full lotus posture, first put the right foot on the left thigh, then put the left foot on the right thigh. To sit in the half lotus posture, just press the left foot into the right thigh. Again, these are just examples of how to sit. You can do it other ways. Spread the clothing loosely and make it neat. Then put the right hand above the left foot. So this tells you, somebody asked me this today, where to put your hands when doing Zazen. The mudra he's going to describe looks like this, and if you're doing the full lotus posture, your feet are up like that, so your hands rest on your feet. So basically your hands are supposed to be lap level. So then put the right hand above the left foot and place the left hand on the right palm. The thumbs meet and support each other. Just make the body right and sit up straight, so balancing your spine on top of your hips. There goes that helicopter again. It's not a police helicopter either. It's like, it doesn't have those markings, so I don't know what they're looking for. I don't know. Who knows? Do not lean to the left, incline to the right, slouch forward, or lean backward. The ears must be aligned with the shoulders and the nose aligned with the navel. So he's describing an upright, balanced posture. Hold the tongue against the palate, keep the lips and teeth closed, and keep the eyes open. That's another part of Zazen that's important. Breathe softly through the nose. That's all he says about breathing. He doesn't give you any special breathing instructions except breathe softly through the nose. When the physical posture is already settled, make one complete exhalation and sway left and right. Sitting immovably in the mountain still state, think about this concrete state beyond thinking. How can the state beyond thinking be thought about? It is different from thinking. This is just the pivot of Zazen. And in my book, Don't Be a Jerk, I go into great detail about how that phrase is in its original Japanese. But what he's saying is, first he says, think the state beyond thinking is fushiryo. Shiryo means consideration, and fu is a negation. Then the question is, how can the state of thinking be thought about? And then he says, it's different from thinking hishiryo. And the hi in hishiryo is sort of like a stronger negation. It's like the ill in illegal or the im in immoral. So it's not just different, it's like completely not that thing, okay? So it's like the difference between illegal and not quite legal, you know. So that, I don't know if that helps, but anyway, that's what he's saying. This sitting in Zazen is not learning Zen concentration. So it's not a meditative, concentrated, like pinpoint concentration sort of state like you often read about in literature about meditation. It is, he's going to describe what it is. It is simply the peaceful and joyful gait of Dharma. It is the practice and experience which perfectly realizes the state of Bodhi, the state of enlightenment. The universe is conspicuously realized, and restrictions and hindrances never reach it. So you are having your enlightenment experience in Zazen, whether you notice it or not. To grasp this meaning is to be like a dragon that has found water, or like a tiger in its mountain stronghold, or like Ziggy barking at me. Remember, the right Dharma is naturally manifesting itself before us, and darkness and distraction have dropped away already. So again, he's saying that, I don't know what, Ziggy, I don't see anything up there. Is it the helicopter? That's gone. I don't know what's up with him. So basically, another statement of practice and enlightenment are the same thing. Now, Nishijima Roshi and Mike Cross made an interesting little error. Interesting in that I don't see how they didn't catch it. In Japanese, there is no distinction between saying if something happens and when something happens. You use the same words to describe a situation. So what they want to say is when we arise from sitting, but what they say is actually if we rise from sitting, which is not what they mean. Ziggy, what are you barking at? He's sitting right in front of me. Not sitting, he's standing and looking out at nothing in particular and barking. Ziggy, I don't know what you want. Hold on, let me finish reading this, okay? When we rise from sitting, we should move the body slowly and stand up calmly. We should not be hurried or violent. We see in the past that those who transcended the common and transcended the sacred, and those who died while sitting or died while standing, there are people who supposedly died while sitting in Zazen. There's a rumor, or there's a version of the story of Dogen that he dies while sitting Zazen, but I think most people who have examined the history of it think that's probably not true, but there are examples of people who did. These people relied totally on this power. Moreover, the changing of the moment through the means of a finger, a pole, a needle, or a wooden clapper, and the experience of the state through the manifestation of a whisk, a fisk, a whisk, I sound like Popeye.
If anyone dares to risk my fist, it's buff and it's wham, understand.
A whisk, a fist, a staff, or a shout can never be understood by thinking in discrimination, and all those whisk and fisk and wooden clapper and all this are traditional stories of people's enlightenment experiences. How could they be known through mystical powers or practice and experience? They may be dignified behavior beyond sound and form. How could they be anything other than criteria that precede knowing and seeing? I would love to do a whole talk about criteria that precede knowing and seeing, but it's prajna is what he's talking about, wisdom that exists before anything we would recognize as wisdom. It's intuitive wisdom. Therefore, we do not discuss intelligence as superior and stupidity as inferior. We do not choose between clever people and dull ones. If we single-mindedly make effort in Zazen, that truly is pursuit of the truth. Practice and experience is naturally untainted. Actions are more balanced and constant. So there's a whole thing, there's a footnote about practice and experience are untainted, but it's another allusion to an old Zen koan talk. And actions are more balanced and constant means that our actions are more balanced and constant if we do Zazen. In general, the ancestors of this world and of other directions, of the western heavens and eastern lands, western heavens is India and eastern lands is here in Dogen speak, meaning Asia, the rest of Asia, all similarly maintain the Buddhist posture and solely indulge in the custom of our religion. They simply devote themselves to sitting and are caught by the still state. Although there are myriad distinctions and thousands of differences, we should just practice Zazen and pursue the truth. Why should we abandon our own seat on the floor to come and go without purpose through the dusty borders of foreign lands? And this is an allusion to a story in the Lotus Sutra about a guy who wanders and wanders when he's always had the truth, or that the great pearl right with him the whole time. It's a long story, but that's basically, we have it already, so let's look for it, or let's look at it. If we misplace one step, we pass over the moment of the present, so don't miss the moment of this present moment. Bad grammar, but you got it. We have already received the essential pivot, which is the human body. This is an allusion to Buddhist cosmology, which says that receiving a human body, being born as a human, is the way that one can attain enlightenment, because being born as a god, everything's too cushy for you to get enlightened, and being born as an animal like Ziggy, or in one of the lower hell realms or something, you just don't have have it together enough to even know that enlightenment is possible. So the human body is the only place we can do it. We must never pass time in vain. We are maintaining and relying upon the pivotal essence, which is the Buddha's truth. Who could wish idly to enjoy the sparks that fly from a flint? Which I guess is something people used to sit and enjoy doing, wasting time. You know, it's like playing on your PlayStation or something these days would be the modern equivalent. What is more, the body is like a dewdrop on a blade of grass. Life passes like a flash of lightning. Suddenly it is gone, and in an instant it is lost. You said it, brother. I beseech you, noble friends, in learning through experience, do not become so accustomed to images that you are dismayed by the real dragon. Another allusion to an old story about a guy who loves dragons, and then a real dragon comes to visit him because he finds out how much he loves dragons. He loves dragons in pictures and toys and things like that. It's like somebody like me loving Godzilla movies and Godzilla toys, and then the real Godzilla shows up and I run away. That's the story. Okay. It means you for example, in sort of modern parlance, somebody who's like, I'm so into meditation, but when it comes to actually sitting and meditating, they don't want to do it. I know a lot of those kind of people. I meet them all the time. Devote effort to the truth which is directly accessible and straightforward. Revere people who are beyond study and without intention. That is a whole thing in Nishima Roshi's talks. He always says that Buddhism, Zazen is the state without intention. So it doesn't matter what you intend to do with your Zazen. It is the state itself is beyond any sort of intention. Accord with the Bodhi of the Buddhas, the enlightenment of the Buddhas, become a rightful successor to the Samadhi of the patriarchs. If you practice the state like this for a long time, you will surely become the state like this itself. So that state like this is another example of the word inmo, it, the great it that is unexplainable. The treasure house will open naturally, and you will be free to receive and use its content as you like. Fukan Zazengi ends. The end. That is where he drops the mic. So that is the briefest introduction anybody will ever give you to Fukan Zazengi. I hope it was somewhat useful. And if you want to send me any money to sustain my life, or to go somewhere after our wedding, I would thank you for doing that. The info is below on the screen, and that helps a lot, even the small donations. Really appreciate it. But if you're having money trouble or something, don't worry about me. I'll be fine. I'm doing okay. So that is it. We will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye. Ziggy's main criteria for wanting an object seems to be that I have it. So notice that now he wants this toy, and oops. Okay, now he's scratching. Oh, Fico. Let's see Fico. Okay, Ziggy's main criteria for wanting an object seems to be that I have it. Is this the same as Fico? No, this experiment is going crazy. Now Fico wants the object, but if I have this object... Oh, now Ziggy wants this one, because I have it. But if I let go of this object and pick up this object, now he wants this object. Does this tell us something about the nature of living beings?